So you obviously know I'm not working there anymore.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have some questions about Chez Doris, but if you can't answer, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, we have a bunch of other things to talk about.
Late questions about it lately, or questions of when I was there at the end?
There.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I guess we'll see as we go along. So I just wanted to explain that it's going to be 30 minutes, and it's going to be tape recorded and transcribed and then shown to the professor. So it's just us that will see it and the professor. And so the goal of the whole interview is to learn about you and your past work experience and the evolution of just Chez Doris when you were there, if you can provide them to us. Just as an intro, we just wanted to know if we could go back a little bit and know a little bit about where you grew up.
I grew up in Villamar, which is just over the little bridge to the Naka back here.
Okay.
Not far from here, about 15 minutes. For at least 30 years. Then lived in Verdun, LaSalle, and St. Charles. I owned a house for a while, and then I'm back in Verdun. It's mainly the southwest sector.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is interesting because the line of work that I've been in for so long, I think, reflects on the demographics of the people. You know. And when I was in Verdun, I worked at Dawson Boys and Girls Club in my 20s, right up until I had my child. And I saw a lot of poverty. And I think that's one of the things that really introduced me into what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that was one of our questions. We wanted to know more about that.
T-latch kids.
Yeah.
It was really the time of when T-latch kids were really starting to really show and the effects of it. And I thought, this is not okay. And then I realized as I got to know parents and seniors that the problem was much bigger. Because you go into it naive. But after a while, being there, the world opens up.
And I feel like it's like that now too, because when I used to babysit when I was a bit younger, like I found all of the kids I was babysitting too were latchkey kids, and none of their parents were ever home. I feel like it's still like a phenomenon today.
No, you're right.
And also we saw that you went to university and college in fine arts and recreation and leisure. That's right. Can you talk to us more about that?
Okay. Fine arts, because I was artistic as a kid and very, very creative, and it was something that I did to enjoy life, period, and also to explore things. And I'm still doing that. I do art now on the computer. In fact, 2 years ago I fell and fractured my pelvis, so I was in bed for, oh God, too long. So the only thing I could do with my art is bring the canvas on your bed.
Yeah.
But then I started doing it on the computer. So now I've got over 250 drawings. I had a little show in one of the cafes in St. Henry.
How do you do it on the computer?
With the old paint program.
Okay.
But it's interesting. I really had to learn.
I think you have to be talented to make nice art on the paint program.
My son kept saying, "Mom, that's amazing stuff," and I said, "No, it looks like childish, but the more practice than I got." And then after that, I ended up writing a book last year, 2014 to 2015, which is now being edited, and hopefully will be published. And it's based on story background of my father's side of the family, and the English-French thing regarding him marrying my mom who was English, but also there's a lot of stuff going on. There's incest and this trial going on.
It's about your family?
His side,
okay.
Yeah, like we're not born yet.
Yeah,
That's the
right.
50s. I mean, I was born in the 50s.
Yeah.
Before me.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it was so wonderful to write it. I'd read it every single night. I couldn't wait to get to it, but I'd write all night long. Yeah, I went through 19 pens. I wrote it. I didn't type it. It was very stupid on my part. And six copybooks. So now I'm in the process of, well, somebody's typing and then they're editing at the same time.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Did you incorporate your artwork into your work at Chez Doris at all?
I did initially in the first years, and then at the new house, which is on Comedy, when I was seeing the new house, that we moved 5 times, I believe. So,
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's the newest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, a little bit, but we got students from Concordia, our ed students, so they did a marvelous job.
Okay, so now we could talk a little bit more about Chez Doris. So we know that it was founded in 1977 by community worker Sheila Baxter in the name of a woman, Doris, who expressed a need for a safe place. And then you joined their team in 1987, pretty shortly after. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Chez Doris, and did you start out as the director?
Yeah. I started out as the director. It was a job that I was looking for a long time. Like I said, I was really looking in that field now that Dawson, which was the center, not the school, got me interested in working with people of all ages. And when Chez Doris was advertising, I applied and I got the job. And I had never really worked with the homeless per se before, but it ended up being something that I really, really, really enjoyed, and it just progressed from there. And in 87, so about 1990, we worked very, very hard on getting another building, because when I first started there was 3 paid staff and maybe 6 staff on a government grant, which wasn't a lot of money for them at the time at all. And they only had so many hours a week. And there were only a maximum of 20 to 25 women a day. Which you know that's not quite how it is. 20 to 25 women a day. And it was a big house for a home. But at lunchtime, people were still going up the stairs towards the 15th of the month and over. So we realized it was getting very, very dangerous. For fire and for security in terms of the women getting aggressive towards each other because they're so tight. And so we realized it's time to look for another place. And lo and behold, and I'm not trying to take credit for this, but it just happened. I used to park my car behind where there was a parking lot, and I noticed that the house, huge, where Chez Doris is now, had a sign for sale. And so I went and asked, and then I spoke to the board, and I said, there's a house around the corner. But we did a study first, and we decided that to stay in that area was the best option for everybody. Near the hospital, and a lot of the Inuits were hanging around that area. We were really developing more and more programming for the Inuits, so we wanted to really build that, and we thought if we moved away, they would lose us and we would lose them.
Is that the dominant demographic there right now?
It's a growing demographic, but I know that when I was at Chez Doris in 2013, it was starting to go down a bit because they closed the state park. Okay, and a lot of the Inuits started to disperse and go elsewhere, including the plateau. When I was at St. Michael's, people in the plateau came to complain about the Inuits over at St. Michael's. So I mean, it's interesting to see how there's these people, this whole group of people, unfortunately, aren't just about anywhere. It's pretty sad. It's really, really sad. But so Chez Doris decided to do that, and it ended up they're still at the new house. And remarkably, both houses were paid off. The first one was paid off in a year and a half.
Wow.
For the capital campaign, and the second one was paid off in a year and a half.
It's huge though, so that's really good.
And then we got $1 million+ grant for renovations and to make an extension. It was 16 rooms to begin with, but now it's much bigger. There wasn't a commercial kitchen before. People lived in it.
So I read an interview in the Concordia Thursday report from 2001 where you had said that about 60 to 80 women pass through the shelter in a day, and sometimes the number is even higher. How have these numbers changed since when you first started working in '87 until now?
It's at least doubled, if not more. And then after that, up until 2013, it was not unusual to be 100 to 120 women.
Yeah.
Especially after the 15th of the month. It would get really, really busy.
So how did Chez Doris evolve to meet the higher demand?
One thing, we started to develop more and more programs because we realized that it's one thing for the women to come in and use it as a drop-in, which was what Doris's request was, and it was a very, very valid request. But we also felt that we were doing them a disservice by just offering that when they could be doing other things if they want to. When I first started working at Chez Doris, me, Maria, I mean it like the royal me, but I'm not like that. This has to change. Back at the old rules, this has to change. How can they be allowed to lay down on sofas all day and do nothing with their lives? And it took me just a few months to discover that I was the one that had to change. Because this was their fight, this was their place. And who was I to decide this wasn't okay? And then I realized this was where they felt safe, and I didn't have the right to change that. So what we did instead was we allowed them to continue, but we developed programs around that. First finding out if women want to do this, testing programs, and then also asking them, would you want to do this? And eventually the programs go from their own. The massage, who would have thought massage would be something? The medical clinic was something that we really pushed for. And we had a little bit of Make sure you keep your nose.
We can pause for a moment if you'd like.
No, it's okay. My words aren't yeah, there was a bit of a problem in regards to one of the CLSCs. They felt like we were duplicating their services. And if you wanted to look at it that way, you could, but we said, and we stood by it, said, no, we're complementing. Because a lot of the women who were coming to Chez Doris refused to go elsewhere because they felt safe under the roof. And they felt safe in the staff. And you know what? That program started, still existing, and hasn't stopped.
The medical one?
Yeah. And there's a doctor there. She receives the results all these other someone who never had an sonogram. And there was a lot of stuff that started to happen, and it ended up being, we saw that this was one of the smartest things we ever did.
Yeah.
And then the CLSC came around and realized, oh, what was good.
Good, so it worked out. I'm curious too, how did you, in 1987, when you were starting up, how did you make yourself known to women in Montreal? How did people know about Chez Doris?
For the most part, it was already well known in the Anglophone community. Are you talking about to the women themselves?
Yeah, to the women themselves.
The women themselves, word of mouth. Word of mouth, and still is word of mouth for most of the organizations. Or also social workers do referrals, etc., doctors, psychiatrists. But in the beginning, it was mainly word of mouth. As the years went by, more and more psychiatrists and doctors and social workers because we would be working more and more closely with them. As part of a disciplinary team, even if they were on staff with us, we worked close. So that's how that evolved. And I remember going to speak at the Montreal General for Psychiatric Unit to a lot of the patients and bringing information about Chez Doris, so when they were released, they would know about us, they could come to us. I was invited by the team, and there was a lot of that going on.
I'm just curious, because did a lot of the programs stay the same from 1987, or like a lot of them are more recent?
I guess in 2004, 2005, there were many more new ones.
Okay.
For example, massage. The medical.
And there's like Reiki.
And what's interesting is, for anything that we weren't sure of as a staff, we had it tested on us first, so at least see how it felt. because many of them have mental health difficulties or drug and alcohol. Sometimes they don't quite know what's going on, and it would be unfair to expose them to something that might.
Yeah.
Just like
Be careful of the situation.
like Reiki at the time, I didn't know anything about it. I knew what it was, but I had that woman come and do the press.
Yeah.
Then we realized, okay, it's fine.
Mhm.
Okay, we're gonna go with it.
Speaking of programs, we looked at your professional profile, and it says that at St. Michael's Mission, you established a formal human resources program, expanded a grant foundation, and provided crisis intervention. When you started at Chez Doris, did you also implement these kinds of programs there, or were they already there?
No. When I started at Chez Doris, the word it was alive, but the people working before me, they worked hard, and they did a darn good job of it, because they developed that agency to begin with, and that was no easy feat. But when I first came there, all the files were in plastic bags on the floor. There was one filing cabinet that had, like, maybe some of the financials. To make a photocopy, I had to run down the street 3 blocks to have the community service down to Mason Avenue. Run back. So, I mean, it's not easy. No. So, there were a lot of changes. And we built the process.
Yeah. So what are some similarities and differences between your job as the executive director at St. Michael's versus, like, being the actual director at Chez Doris?
St. Michael's was very interesting. The former director who knew me quite well, because we used to sit on a lot of committees that work in the city, and I always said to the professional committee goers, oh, we're doing what you felt like. He had said to me, are you sure you're going to want that job after you left? You know, it's pretty rough. I said, well, we'll see, because sometimes Chez Doris can be pretty rough, but, you know, you do a lot of automatic, and you start to learn. You also learn to read body language, etc. I mean, you have to protect yourself, but that's how you do it, and you also, your team will back you up and you back the team up. Otherwise, it would not work. And at St. Michael's, it was mainly men. So, I mean, I understood his point, but to be very honest with you, what I found, and I'm not knocking the women for this at all, is that at St. Michael's, if the men got into an argument or a little belief, I would go up to them. I'm not that very big, right?
Yeah.
And they would, for the most part, stop. And it was like a kind of respect. And interestingly, even if we got to be really, really big and we had to walk them out of their building, and maybe sometimes call the police, the next day those 2 or 3 men or 4 men would all be sitting down playing cards again. She learned. And I think it's just the difference between men and women. They had an argument. Very often there would be, you know, like the grudge itself.
Okay, yeah.
And so the next day, you can't sit in this room with us. You're going somewhere else, or else we're making you leave. And so the staff would intervene, and even then after you've intervened, you hear a little ruckus going on, you go back, and they're back at that room, and they're singling her out. And I can't explain it except for the fact that maybe women do tend to gossip more, and don't, I mean, this is recording, so obviously I can't say don't quote me. But it was an experience I learned, and I was shocked. And I really believe that for the guys, the next day was over. For the women, it would go on and on and on. Maybe out of different needs. Maybe they felt that they needed to feel better about themselves. Where the men, their problems with, they viewed their problems differently. It doesn't mean there were any less, it's just a different attitude of seeing things. But that's the thing I noticed the most. The men tended to be a little bit more respectful when there were big problems.
Okay. I guess we'll go back to Chez Doris for a second. Since you were there for 27 years, what are some of the greatest achievements you've seen from Chez Doris in those 27 years?
First of all, I wasn't there for 27. I looked like it, but I I was there for 20 years,
Okay.
and then went back in 2013 because they called me now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So really it's about 21 points.
Okay.
I'd like to take the credit for more, but no. I wish it were, because I love the women very, very much on the
Did I
team.
copy that wrong?
Anyway, it's okay. So what was the question?
What are the greatest achievements you've seen from Shadoris?
First of all, the biggest achievement, and a lot of people over the years always ask me, what is the biggest success for me?
Yeah.
The biggest success really was to see some women coming in with the courage to come in and tell their story. Because their stories were not always pretty. And I don't know if I'd want to tell someone my story. Their stories were like incredible. And like I try to explain to people who, like if I spoke on behalf of Sandra, which I did pretty well every year, and I go to corporate offices in the morning, they had their early breakfast, and they always ask that question. And I'd say, just show up. And then show up the next day without feeling like they're being judged. And that is major.
Yeah.
That's, I think, one of the things. Secondly, women did return to school. Or they would go to see psychiatrists or psychologists. They would find partners, and they would start to be able to focus. And then there was a check administration program that we introduced at Shadoris, which was, we copied it off of Ivanov. And I remember asking for the staff to go and be taught by their staff. It was an agreement between the two organizations. And when I left Shadoris, 2005, it was up to 50 women. We're now up to 100, whereby the checks come directly from the government. The women have to sign an agreement, and the check comes directly to the agency. And the staff who are in charge of that program pay the landlord for their rent, buy a bus pass for the women so they need it, pay their electricity bill, their telephone, whatever, and then the difference of the money that is left over is kept in an account special for them, and it'll still be done by maybe the 4 weeks or every second week, depending on what the women want. But what it does is helps them budget, for one thing, to not take drugs as much as they were, or stop drugs and alcohol. Gambling, that's a big question, and gave them less money to gamble at night. But at the same time, if they ever decided, well, I don't want part of this, they have the right to cut, with the understanding that for the next 6 months they could come back and do it.
Okay.
Most women didn't cut it while I was there. I don't know now. But
It's a lot of support to walk away from.
Yeah, but it was an amazing program, and the staff did a fantastic job. They still do. And when you think about it, that's 100 women who now got their apartments.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't sound like a huge number, but it is.
Yeah,
it is huge.
Yeah.
And so in your, I was looking at the annual report from 2013 to 2014, and then from 2014 to 2015. And in the first one, in the 2013 to 2014, it said that there was about almost 26,000 visits to the house in the year and 40,000 meals served. And then in the report of 2014 to 15, it says about 20,000 visits and about 27,000 meals served. What would you say is the biggest reason for the drop in that those numbers?
That was the time when Cabot Square was closed.
Okay.
So I know for a fact a lot of the Inuits was not coming as often, if coming at all. And in fact, there was a worker who had been hired, and her job was also to go from place to place to see where the women were going. Shadoris wasn't the only organization doing that. A lot of the organizations were trying to find out where are they going.
Yes.
How can we get back, reach them, that nothing else terrible is happening in their lives. That could be part of it. I know that also at that point, we closed weekends.
Yeah.
So that represents a couple of hundred meals less a month.
Is that due to funding?
Yeah. Yeah, due to funding, which was a shame because we were the only one really that was open on weekends except for a night shelter where they can stay.
But it's back open now.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank God.
Yes. We have about 4 minutes left.
Okay. So, quickly, we just want to know where you see Chez Doris going in the future.
Well, I think it would be very sad if the day center part of it was stopped, because originally that was the mandated mission, and a lot of people who donate give because of that. But also that was Doris' request, and if you look at those women, they're all Dorises in some way or another. But at the same time, because like the medical program, under that roof they feel secure and they have confidence and trust, perhaps Chez Doris could go into short or long-term housing. That's biting off a big chunk. So I wouldn't do it until I was absolutely sure that we have the constant funding for that. Because I wouldn't want to see it happen and the day shelter get cut off because they need to support the nighttime only. Because the day shelter is the way to funnel them. And I think it would be very sad if that stopped. And it really is a wonderful service. It really is.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember hearing from donors all the time that there would be so impressed when they came in. You know? The women themselves, it's like home. And when you were there, Chanel, I'm sure you felt the same way. It was like a home. Everybody was family. And I think that's the key to the recipe of why it works.
Do you have anything else to add that you think we should know? Something important?
I think it's important that the team and the board of directors get along well. They have to be in a very tight, productive partnership because both entities make or break the organization, and that the staff and volunteers are recognized as being very important agents, and that they are well treated and respected for what they do. You know, because I think that no organization is strong if their team isn't strong. You know, it's very sad, and you see that a lot when the team is not respected, and so the morale goes down. Not good, not good.
That's useful for us because a huge focus on our program is about teamwork, and we're learning how to improve it. And
okay, we have like
and I guess we just want to say too that we really admire the work that you've done for Chez Doris and for nonprofit organizations, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come and sit with us and talk to us about it.
I'm glad that you asked me, but in terms of taking the credit for having done all that work, it was a team. It was a team, and I wouldn't, I don't regret any of it. What I do regret is not seeing the team enough anymore, and the women, because I love the women. You know, that's something we didn't talk about, but the staff saw a lot of wonderful things happening, but we saw a lot of sad things happening. And that's why it's so important that the team is tight. Because you have to support each other, but you can live through it. But you learn all the time.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, actually, we did have other questions too, but like we didn't get to it because it's only supposed to be 30 minutes.
I talked too much.
No, you answered perfectly all of the questions. Like
you answered some ones that we didn't even do.
We weren't sure if like maybe it would go in the complete opposite direction of what we wanted, but you stayed like perfectly on.
We learned a lot, I think. At least I did.